Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. Thursday night is talking about what's happening in the war that will change the world. Ukraine war. A lot of stuff has come out. European Union seems to be breaking a rank with the entire narrative of Ukraine. They're buying Russian gas. Talking about buying oil. There are certain voices within Europe, in Germany specifically, talking about repairing the pipelines. What's happening there? We also hear Zelensky has an exit plan. We'll find out about that. And of course, with Major General Prabdeep Singh, who's here with us, we will try and understand what's happening on the ground, apart from all these little things and the back end politics which is taking place within America, the main backer of the war. So let's get into it. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Adi, and good to be back again as usual every Thursday. Look forward to talking on Ukraine. Uh, well, as you said, lots is happening. The famous counteroffensive of the Ukrainians is on. Uh, as per media, Western media, it's making major headways. We shall examine as to how much of a headway it is making. Uh, we've also heard of a large scale of drone warfare which is going around on both sides. That's from the Russian side as well as the Ukrainian side. And this seems to be the major weapon which is being effective during this war. And we have seen, I think this is perhaps going to be the only war where the drone warfare is going to be tested. And anti-drone measures have also been devised by many countries, and everybody today, the shape of warfare is changing. So, and this is a major example, big example of the same. Of course, we've had strikes on a particular airfield by the Ukrainians, and of course, damaging a few aircraft. We should talk about that as well. Then we have, as you said, the narrative being changed in Europe. Europe seems to be in a state of disarray. Europe really doesn't know as to where it is headed because there are very dissenting voices which are coming from all over. The political scenario, as you mentioned, in most of the countries is in doldrums. We've been talking about that in earlier talks as well. And uh, President Zelensky, of course, is making sure that he's got enough money for his future. He has he's bought a villa and just about US $5 million, and it's very for a actor it's a very small amount which he has been able to put aside for his villa while the soldiers are fighting. He's busy buying villas, so that's quite interesting. Now, of course, a lot's happening on the Black Sea also. We've had a couple of boats which have been destroyed by, this Marine Special Forces, the Ukrainian Special Forces. But they have been about 50 of them were on four boats which were taken on by the Russian aircraft. So all this is happening, and this is in wake of you know our late Prigozhin, who's no more, his funeral having taken place, and the Wagner forces kind of losing their steam as of today. Not much is being spoken about. And of course, President Lukashenko has made it very clear that they're going nowhere. They're going to continue to remain in Belarus. So all that is happening. Yeah, we'll discuss as we go along. Uh, it's been an interesting week, and as always, something new just about emerges, and there's lots to talk about. Yeah.
Sir, I want to talk about something right at the beginning, which is Europe. I mean, I know Europe has been buying gas and this and that from third parties. What we are seeing now is direct purchases and talks about repairing the pipeline, you know, there are murmurs. And the biggest news that came out is after a long, long time, Macron and Scholz, the president respectively of France and Germany, have spoken to Putin on the phone together. What's happening here, sir?
You see, one must realize that this counteroffensive is going nowhere. So let's start from that. Now, once we understand as to why the counteroffensive is not going anywhere, I think I'll cover the tactical situation first, so that
Sure, sir.
the situation and
Builds
the
up.
bigger picture is clear. Uh, I have a couple of slides which I want to show, and I just want to make sure that the viewers understand as to what exactly is happening on the ground. Then I'll build up the case as to what is the take of the West. The new term that I came about is anti-Westernism. So there is a it's a terminology I did not know it's existed, but it seems to have be existing for a very, very long time. Anyway, notwithstanding, this is a slide we just wanted to show this particular airfield, Peskov, which was targeted by the Ukrainians, about 12 odd drones which got through. Now, if we just study the location of this particular place, it's about 700 kilometers north of Ukraine. It's nowhere near Ukraine. Now, it borders Estonia, just about 40 kilometers, to Latvia, about 70 odd kilometers. And then, of course, you have the Baltic Sea, which is about 200 odd kilometers. The point I'm trying to make here is uh, this distance, about 600 to 700 kilometers, being covered by drones from the Ukrainian territory, is kind of mysterious. Is
Hmm.
Estonia involved? Is Latvia involved? Or did the Ukrainians come down to the Baltic Sea and launch the drones? So these are the kind of things which have suddenly started to worry Russia, because being so up north and being so away from the scene, these aircraft, the IL-76, which is a uh, aircraft, transport aircraft. This is a transport aircraft base in which about four odd IL-76 aircraft have been damaged. How, uh, if you see the photograph, these are all parked in the open. They're not, as we know, these IL-76 and IL-78, which is the air-to-air refueler. These are huge aircrafts, and you know uh, they're all parked in the open. These don't have blast pens. Blast pens are meant for fighter aircraft. So these have been taken on very normally by these drones. There was no AD cover, obviously, because all aircraft, while AD cover should have been there, but the focus of attention of the Russians was not in this particular area. So what I'm trying to just say is that Ukraine, through the drones, is extending its reach to areas which normally would not have got addressed. How they are doing it is a mystery. As of now, nothing is very clear. Now, if you look towards the east, that is Kuzenkino, that's the village where the debris of the Prigozhin's aircraft has been found. So, since he was traveling from from St. Petersburg to Moscow, and all this was the general line that he was following. So, what I just want to say is whether it was who brought the aircraft down, who planted the
Bomb.
explosives in the aircraft or a bomb in the aircraft. Just to make a point that there seem to be certain inimical elements which are around in this particular part of Russia as
Russia.
well,
Hmm.
which are operating from within their territory or right somewhere around their territory. Would Estonia and Latvia be involved? That means if they are involved, it is a direct involvement of NATO countries. So this makes this situation a little dicey. So next, I just want to give you a picture of what, just a rundown. This is where the Kupiansk is, and this what you see in yellow is the area that which Russians have taken. Again, not much has been taken by the Russians. Are they going slow? Why are they going deliberately slow? Well, I will talk about it a little later. In my opinion, it's a very uh, the Russians do not want to buy casualties unnecessarily. So the main aim is they have been able to divert the attention of the Ukrainians towards the north, because if a time would come when the entire force would be behind this offensive of the Russians, which would directly lead to Kharkiv and thereafter to Kiev. This would happen if and when required. At the moment, I presume that the Russians are not very interested in continuing this operation at a faster pace.
Hmm.
The whole aim being to, move the forces from the south and the east towards the north. Obviously, they need to defend that area, so some forces have to be deployed. Now, if
Uh,
you look at Bakhmut, which a lot of there's a lot of talk about Bakhmut, and again they're going to capture certain areas. Well, if you see, not much has been captured. These blue dots that you see, these are the areas that they have come up to. The main defenses are way behind. So the counteroffensive in the Bakhmut area is going nowhere. Now, this is the Donetsk region. Here also you see that not much progress has been made. This blue shaded area is what the Ukrainians have. Uh, Not much has been achieved. This is Kherson. Again, in the Kherson area, while a lot of boat landings and uh, river crossings have taken place, the islands are all filled up with the Ukrainian troops, etc., etc. But again, the operation is going nowhere. Now, this is something where main counteroffensive is supposed to have made progress, and this is where this is the Zaporozhye region, and all of us are hearing and reading that the the Ukrainians are making good amount of progress. If you especially go onto the BBC or also look at the uh, ISW website, you will see that a lot of talk is there that the Ukrainians are making slow progress, and
hmm.
they're causing a lot of problems for the Russians. This looks like a big, huge counteroffensive, and the gains made, as you see, a wedge has apparently been made within the defenses, the Russian defenses, and this village of Robochne has been kind of captured. That is what we get to hear. Some say it's already captured. Some say the southern part is still with Russia. So the exact situation is not very clear. But notwithstanding this particular village, the I would put it at about 80 to 90% of the village is under the Ukrainian control. So this is giving them a morale boost, and this is what has been blown up by the media to a great extent. The next operation is supposed to be moving towards Verbov, that is towards the east. That is where the counteroffensive is. I just want to put the viewers in the correct perspective and they should try and understand while this progress has been made, Russian, the screen positions of the Russians have been penetrated. Uh, but how much of a material difference does it make to the entire scheme of things is what I would just want to put in the correct perspective. Now, again, if you look at this particular slide, it's the same slide. I'm just trying to show as to the density of the defenses in this particular area.
Perspective. Hmm.
Yeah, just trying to give you a perspective. Now, what you see here is this particular wedge, from Orkhev, you see the main counteroffensive, the arrow coming out to Robetsne. And then it is supposed to, after this, the main aim of the counteroffensive is to go on to Tokmak. Now, you just see the amount of defensive lines the Ukrainian armed forces will have to go through to get onto Tokmak and try and capture Tokmak, which is heavily defended. So just keep a note on the distances as also on the defenses. Now, to give you a larger picture, this is the map of Ukraine. You see where that wedge has been made. You see where Robochne is. You see where Tokmak is. You see where Melitopol is. I think with the next couple of years also, if the war drags on, this is not going to happen, because this particular wedge that I just showed you, or the penetration that has been made, it cost them about 40,000 lives, right, in the last 3 months. So that's what the achievement is all about. So when you say the counteroffensive is progressing, and it is progressing slowly, and whether it's Zelensky or whether it is the deputy Hana making statements that we are very proud of our soldiers, they're doing a great job, and they've been able to penetrate the Russian defensive. Well, gentlemen, all those who are listening in, I just want to put, after all, the aim is to get onto Crimea. And now if you see this, when are they going to fetch up to Crimea? I really do not know. Of course, Zelensky has he had made a statement that he would be spending his summers in Crimea. Well,
He
I
could
really
be,
do
sir.
not know.
He could be if he's arrested by the Russians.
That fine. I think he had a he had a change of heart. He, instead of Crimea, he thought of buying that villa. So he says, if not Crimea, at least let me have a holiday in, I think it's Greece, right?
Egypt, sir.
Egypt. I'm so sorry. It's in Egypt. So he's bought a villa in Egypt. So he's $5 million. It's like in Egypt. So he says, I can't spend it in Crimea. So he's headed for Egypt. Now, if you look at the red arrow, this is where, now I just want to put a perspective. While the Ukrainians are looking at coming down into Crimea, which is not happening anywhere in the near future. So all of us who are watching this, please be very, very clear. The progress has been dismal. After all the wherewithal which has been provided by Europe, by the West, by the EU, by NATO, all those 50-odd countries which have provided assistance, this is the kind of headway these people have made, and this is the so-called counteroffensive. The Russians, on the other hand, are making a beeline for Kharkiv, at the moment going slow for a particular reason. So now, when you look at all this, NATO, West, Europe, United States, whatever it is, just look at the amount of assistance, military assistance, which has been provided. Now, people are not fools, nor are the politicians. After all, the politicians are responsible to their countrymen, and the country comes first, always and every time. So they are not going to empty their coffers or empty their reserves, or give away the reserves to Ukraine, since it doesn't seem to be moving anywhere. Now, this is just what I wanted to prove. So now a realization has set in, even amongst the top leaders of these NATO nations or the European nations, that even the United States, for that matter, we discussed that last time, that the narrative is changing, and rightly so. You're a good son. I give you everything, all that wherewithal, and yet you become a drug addict. It does not, then what do you happen? The best is to get you out of the house. So this is precisely what is happening. Europe has been very kind on to President Zelensky and Ukraine, has supported wholeheartedly. But in turn, what has happened, it has started to burn its own feet. Now, how long will they do it? When we talked of, after all, they were all dependent on for energy resources onto Russia. America has made it, difficult for them, and American energy is 2 to 3 times more expensive. Now, when you look at all that, Europe still continues, as you rightly mentioned, Adi, that 40%, there has been an increase in 40% of the liquefied natural gas which has been imported by Europe from Russia. Oil, as we all know, is being diverted or is being bought from India and China, but the crude is coming from Russia to these countries. India and China both are buying the crude, refining it, and then selling it back to the Europeans.
Hmm.
So, willy nilly, what has happened is things have become expensive. Then comes the grain deal. All the grain, as we are aware, that while the grain deal was a big deal, and most of the grains were actually landing up in Europe,
Europe.
and about 20% were the ones which are going to the countries which are needing it. Now, we are aware of what the 5 countries, they have put their foot down and said that, look, we are not going to let the Ukrainian grain come onto our countries, for a simple reason, because our farmers are going to suffer.
Right.
So today the self-interest is kicking in. The third is the arms industry, the military industrial complex. The military industrial complex of Europe is not geared up for so much of production. Of course, the Russians are very much geared up, and their factories are working 24/7. They're doing 3 shifts in a day, and they're producing ammunition like, I mean, as they are aware, and they were prepared for all this. Whereas the European military industrial complex is not geared up to produce so much of equipment. Just for a fun fact, 2 million rounds of 155 RT shells RT has been provided to Ukraine. 2 million. Now that's not funny at all. The Ukrainians are firing 6,000 155 RT shells a day.
Wow.
And in contrast, the Russians are firing 60,000 a day. So that's the
That's
kind of
not that's not
that's
the
the
production of US, Europe put together in a
the
month.
Russians are, yes. I'm just trying to give you this kind of statistics. Of course, they are there in the media, and I picked it up from the media.
Yeah.
I don't have any other source. This is open source. Now it's 6,000 versus 60,000. That's the kind of capability Russia has and is employing. Now, of course, this is a huge amount of refugees which are there in Europe. We are all
Hmm.
aware of the refugees. Now, the refugees, wherever there are refugees, uh, if not managed, they become a big pain. Unfortunately, the refugees in Europe, the Ukrainian refugees in Europe, are now become a burden. Even Poland does not want them around. I mean, because they become a nuisance over there. So this kind of and then of course is the political situation. Everybody is interested in their own seat. whether it is in Germany, whether it is
Yeah.
in
France.
France, whether it is even the US. So when you look at all this, politically they are doomed, economically they are sorted, and financially they're like they don't know what to do. Uh, the huge refugee burden. So as far as Europe is concerned, they would rather put an end to this, but uh, nobody really has the gumption to come about and say thank you very much. So perhaps there is a diktat which has already been put, at least let's have the American elections take place. So we discussed that a little later.
Yes.
So, these are the few things which are kind of putting a large amount of burden on Europe. So Europe is kind of, if you've seen the interview or read about the interview between Tucker Carlson and the Hungarian
Viktor Orban.
president, it's very interesting. He is very, very good. I mean, it was a treat to listen to him. He says, as far as I'm concerned, we are on the brink of a World War III. And he made it very clear that every European country today understands that. And his line of argument was very straight and simple, Mr. Orban's. He said that there is no manpower left in
Hmm.
Ukraine to fight, right? The amount of casualties that they're having, the amount, and the casualties, the worst part of it, there's a shortage of blood. More and more casualties are happening in hospitals. They cannot be treated. The hospitals are full, etc., etc. But he made a statement that there are no men to fight. And while he's a he's not a military man, but what he referred to as the boots on ground. But in the end of
Yeah.
it all, you need boots on ground. So if there are no
True.
boots on ground, there are inadequate boots of ground. Where do the other boots of ground come from? God forbid that you have troops, NATO troops on Ukrainian soil. If that happens, he made it very, very clear that that will be the start of a World War III, because that definitely is not going to be acceptable by Russia, and this will lead to a major confrontation. I did read somewhere that America is preparing for for a direct confrontation with Russia in 2024. So all these things which are there over media are quite exaggerated at times. But when you listen to a person giving an interview, it's not exaggerated. It's right. The person
First spoken.
talking.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So there is we are living in very dangerous times, and all sensible leaders of Europe and the world understand this and do not want this war to get prolonged. Yeah.
So America has also actually broken its own ranks. They've not broken any sanctions, but New York Times actually put out an article, and I just want to read the heading of that article. I kept it open just for this. The US is paying billions to Russia and its nuclear agency. Here's why. It turns out that the Americans have actually bought more uranium from Russia in the past year than they've done in the past 5 years. That is one. So they are funding the war themselves, which is very interesting. Now let's talk about America. So what's happening with Biden? I mean, he seems on his way out. And what I mean, to me, there's some kind of a deal taking place because we heard Council of Foreign Relations talking to the Russians. What's happening at the back end? I mean, is it connected somewhere to the battlefield? What's your analysis?
Look, it's very simple. We discussed this last time also. The As far as the Americans are concerned, they've already throwing out the narrative that we want to put an end to this war. That's why we've had enough of this nonsense. Uh, Zelensky's arrogance is going way beyond tolerable limits. I mean, the latest one being that, if you want elections to be held in Ukraine, kindly give me $5 billion to hold the elections. I mean, demanding money now. This is not the way. And the narrative being put forth that we are fighting not for you ourselves but for Europe, etc., etc. Anyway, that aside, the American half the American public doesn't even bother and doesn't even care as to what the hell is happening in Ukraine. 40% would not know whether there's a war on or also or not.
Or where is
60,
Ukraine?
or where is Ukraine? 60% of the Americans uh, who have some idea that there is some war going on would want to put an end to it for a simple reason. They want, I mean, nobody wants to suffer, nobody wants to see inflation, and nobody wants to see discomfort. Today everybody has become very comfortable and doesn't want any price rise, etc., etc. Now, as far as the politics is concerned, we know that the campaigning is kind of gathering momentum, and we had Donald Trump making major statements, and we had Vivek Ramaswamy also making major statements against this war, and the general, and of course Kennedy also making the same kind of statements.
Yeah, yeah,
So the narrative is, let's put an end to the war. It's causing us a lot of financial burden. But there are no boots on grounds. Fine. Our main enemy is China. So let's focus on China rather than wasting our energy on Ukraine. And I've been saying so from the very beginning. Enemy number one for the United States is China, and the focus should be rightly so towards China.
absolutely.
Now, unfortunately, with this Ukraine war, they have drawn Russia also against them, and a lot of energy is getting diverted. So this is the political part of it. Internal politics is President Biden, as we all are aware. Uh, Today, he's also on the verge of being what you call impeached. Today. I mean, we did read about, we did hear about, will Biden be impeached? So
Correct.
if this is the kind of mood which is there in the United States, and if we have had a ex-president of the United States has mugshot being taken and put under arrest and stuff like that, I think American political situation is in quite a turmoil.
Hmm.
And if you're looking at retaining your superpower status, I think the sooner United States mends its, on internal politics, the better it is for them. I think they need to really take a step back, introspect, and carry out whatever you know amends that they have to make. So the political scenario is quite bad. Even in the United States, money, they can keep providing money, they can keep providing the wherewithal, but this war is going nowhere, and that realization has definitely set in. Any compromise before the elections is going to put a dent into their image. Into the
Hmm.
If I just want to take you back a little, when did you last hear of the NATO Secretary General making any statement? Jens
Jen
Stoltenberg. I
Stoltenberg.
mean, I haven't heard of him for the last 10, 15 days. He ain't making no statement. So NATO is
Ursula,
kind of,
the washing
yeah.
machine lady, Ursula, she's gone.
She's been talking about EU and uh, Ukraine coming into EU, etc., etc. And the earliest they're looking at is 2030. That's the time they want to bring in more members into the EU, and there's a lot of controversy about it and discussions going on. So the point I'm trying to make here is NATO has taken a beating. NATO's suddenly silent, and the US is also stepping back. We had Ben Wallace, the Defense Secretary of the United Kingdom, resigning today. So all that is happening in wake of this war.
Yeah.
And the dynamics are changing. The political scenario is changing. So I think this will continue till the elections in the manner that it is continuing. Russia couldn't be bothered. As we have seen, the kind of penetration these people have made, the Ukrainian armed forces have made, is very minimal. Russia is conserving its forces for a bigger battle if it you know kind of suddenly starts off. So it doesn't want to stay with energy. I mean, it wants to save its manpower. It wants to save its wherewithal for a larger battle or a bigger battle if it has to be fought. So Ukraine today would not be the main focus of either United States, Europe, or even Russia. It only leaves out Ukraine because for President Zelensky, this is the only thing that is there left for survival as far as he's concerned. Yes.
I want to actually go on. Excuse me. I mean, you mentioned initially about these strikes in these airfields and stuff like that, which is to me a little weird, sir, because when we are looking at the scenario today in Russia-Ukraine war, we know the amount of people Ukraine has lost. Figures are talking about almost 500,000 now. We've seen the graveyard footages. We've seen small protests happening in the middle of Kiev, where mothers and wives and sisters are protesting and wanting to know about their dead or their missing. How long will this internal cohesion? Because I've stopped seeing images of bars. I've stopped seeing images of parties and all that stuff. That is stopped. The one image that actually kicked Ukraine was those two girls.
Yeah, dancing away.
Now 500,000 troops. I'm saying out and out. You know, total 500,000 people, including civilians and this and that. Two girls dancing half naked in front of graves. How long will this system, will this structure last?
See, uh, within Ukraine also, we've seen that there is a kind of, in my opinion, a revolt building up. If you are forcibly going to pick up people from you know, somebody was walking and you pick him up and say, okay, now go and fight in front. And you're doing that in public places. People are watching, mothers are watching. So this kind of a thing you think is acceptable to anybody? No ways. And this is not the way you conscript.
Yeah,
And this is not the way you carry out mass mobilization. If you're picking up people just because you want them to die. Now the statements, if you go back to the statements which are being made by the United States, that this is the cheapest kind of a war that we have always fought because no
Max
American lives are
Blumenthal.
lost.
Max Blumenthal.
Yeah, so no American lives are being lost. Not funny. I mean, if only American lives matter and Ukrainian lives don't matter, then there is something very wrong.
Terrible statement.
So after all this attitude and all this anti-Westernism is also percolating down into the Ukrainian society today. Of course, there is a when you say that you're not seeing any pictures of bars, etc. That is not because they're not existing. That is because there's a complete media kind of control over what is being let out and what is not being let out. So there is dissension between Zaluzny and Seresky.
Yes.
There is Zelensky is more of a dictator as of now, dictating, trying to dictate terms to the world. I think it's power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If this kind of a system is, he's he's picking up people and putting them behind bars. So all the officials who are taking bribes while he's buying villas. So it cannot happen. And a common man, maybe a commoner, but definitely not stupid. And and the soldiers, after all those who have been picked up, or all those who are fighting, while they owe their allegiance to their country, they are not stupid. And that is why, if you see the statements made by the Ukrainian soldiers who have surrendered and captured, it's quite amazing
Yep.
and totally disheartened. So Ukraine is also within, there are a lot of uh, I would say, it's going to fragment as far as political ideology is concerned, or even allegiance to the nation is concerned, because they are seeing that officials are busy making money while they are themselves, the commoners are being left to just fend for themselves.
So, what is the Council of Foreign Relations telling Putin, sir? Are they telling, wait, 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 don't attack? Don't go on an offensive. Give us some time. We need to wind down.
Yeah,
It'll take a little, Okay, fair
you know,
enough. You start buying oil from Europe. We'll buy more uranium from you. Let's kind
you
of.
know, all these things, track 1.5, track 2, we've discussed. That thing is on, and that will always be on. After all, whether they are telling Russia to go slow or the Russians themselves are going slow is the question. Now, if I were to look at the larger picture, as I've stated earlier, I would want to conserve the armed forces.
Yeah.
I would like to conserve my wherewithal. I would like to conserve my energy for a bigger escalation which could trigger off. So as of now, uh, the Russian army is being, it's not first line. It's not the crack units. It's not regular. It's all, I would say, not not the major forces which are being used. So whether it is the CFR telling them or whether it is on their own, I would say it's on their own that they're going slow as far as Ukraine is concerned. They're looking at how things develop. Second, track two diplomacy, track 1.5 diplomacy carrying on. People want uh, things to go slow at the behest of the United States, as we said, with the elections in the background. And that's my reading of the whole thing.
You
And then
know,
plus
I
and I'll just make another point. Plus, the military-industrial complex is not geared up. I mean, they need time. They need to buy time to kind of raise their stocks of ammunition, produce adequate ammunition before they start. So it could be either way. It could be a ploy. It could be a sincere effort, or it could be just buying time.
there's and coming towards the end after that, I'm going to get into a lot of questions that the audience has. I think, what is the future of Zelensky, sir? What do you see happening to him? Because uh, at the end of it, you mentioned that a lot of people are upset with him. There are talks about him speaking very rudely to world leaders. He's ridiculed people in public. Uh, how long does a guy like that last? Because I don't know, I don't think the Russians are interested in taking him out. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. And the funny thing is that they are creating a scenario where somewhere he will have to be removed from there in a particular way, so that that gets acceptable to the world. What do you think that sort of a scenario would be, sir? Because this guy seems to be the stuck this thing. I don't think the army generals will want would mind negotiating and this and that.
What happens normally, as we've heard, it's always an aircraft which takes off. So, I mean, it has to be an accident whenever it happens. Second, that is how they are wanting the elections to be held so that he's forced out.
That's yeah, exactly.
You
Interesting.
see,
Yes.
they're forcing elections on him, that, just to showcase that you're a democratic country. And if you want to be a part of the EU and you want to be part of NATO, then you must hold the elections in time and you must hold fair elections. And
Get this
he
guy
in turn,
out and yeah. Huh.
yeah. So uh, then kind of edge him out in this particular manner, and as a saving grace for him. So that could be one of the ways to do it. I would say a polite way of doing it. And if that be the case, I won't be surprised that he's made to lose, and then he's sidelined and he just kind of fades away. As of now, to knock him off or to kind of make him disappear would be too blatant. To, would be too blatant. And in any case, the counteroffensive is going nowhere and nothing much is happening. They are, while the training of F-16 pilots is going on, it's going to take years, right? Only 8 of them know how to speak English. The balance of a lot have to be taught how to read and write English. So this kind of efforts on the part of uh, whether it's NATO, EU, United States, it's going to take a long while. So they want somebody who can still control, who's enthusiastic enough to be in charge of a country.
I mean,
You know,
it's really interesting that there is just a setup which is being done like this. And it's in the glaring eyes of the world. This sort of a thing happens, and I don't know. So somewhere down the line, the whole setup and the whole narrative today, when I see Western speakers talking about, oh, Ukraine's going to do this, Ukraine's going to do that, Ukraine's going to do this, you can see their own conviction kind of. uh, if you see Mark Miley's interview with some Arabic
yeah.
channel, that was, I mean,
No, it's sad when senior generals also have to talk like that. I mean, I that's why I wanted to show these maps precisely, because they're all saying that 50% of the area which Russia had captured has been taken, and they're trying to correlate that with the initial, areas. Now, that was a different dynamic. Let's talk real on ground. Agreed, the Russians, screwed it up in the very beginning. I mean, that was massive a faux pas on part of the Russians. Notwithstanding, they recovered and they have the ability and the strength to execute their operations meticulously once they've realized. And I think they just keep boosting uh, the morale of Ukrainian army, morale of Zelensky, and also to paint a rosy picture to the West, the rest of the world, that we need to assist Zelensky so that he can win. Now I've just shown you how easy it is for him to win. So that was the aim, to just show you that. I've come across two interesting terms, and I just want to uh, just talk about that. There is a narrative building up in Germany wherein a large majority of the German population is becoming pro-Russian, pro-Russia, and that lot are being called as Putin understanders. So the number of Putin understanders is increasing day by day. So they've realized that if we need to survive, we need to remain friends with Russia. We need our energy resources. We need our food resources, and the lines of communication must remain open. So that is one. And then another one which came about was that Poland and Ukraine, if you combine the two words or you combine the two countries, whatever is left of Ukraine, and that part is going to be called Ukropolia, right?
Ukropolia.
Yeah, Ukraine and Poland. So, so there's already a term which talks about Ukropolia is likely to exist in the future, which will constitute the Poles as well as the Ukrainians living together. So that's where I would like to end today.
Okay,
Yeah.
you've literally, I mean, everything is gone blank. Ukropolia.
So, yeah. So when I when I talk trifurcation, I just don't talk just like that.
That's I mean, that's like, trust me, sir, that's the best thing I've heard today.
Yeah.
Ukropolia.
Yeah.
John, I don't know
Ukropolia.
why your messages and stuff like that are going, brother. I mean, this is something I also don't understand. We'll have to figure this out. Uh, his messages, he had given some messages, all of them just went off. Very funny. Sometimes YouTube also plays a game. But anyways, let's get into the questions, guys. Of course, most importantly, please like this video. All of you guys, please hit that like button so that we reach people, right? And you know, there is this war is going to get a little more interesting coming close to the G20, because I'm sure Ukraine would want to be on the map somewhere, so he will do something, right? He will take a bold step somewhere, attack something big. We saw this IL-76 sort of an attack that happened. But then let's see what's going to happen, because one of the biggest things that I'm seeing about this war is that uh, it's more political than on the ground. They want to play the political game more than uh, the battlefield scenario. Battlefield scenario is probably just a checkboard. You know, बंदे इधर से उधर भेजते रहो, everything is okay, we'll just put a checkerboard sort of a thing. People are dying, doesn't really matter. It's okay. Cost of war. But it's a sad scenario. So thank you so much for Ukropolia. That's something I'm going to be remembering for a while now. Ukropolia is very interesting. I wish they'd come up with a better name. That's all I would say. So, guys, like the video, subscribe if you've not subscribed to the channel. We do this every Thursday where we go through the Ukraine war. So, please set your calendars. And, of course, most importantly, spread the word to people. If you want to know the reality of Ukraine war, this is the place to be. You can contribute towards the Dev Talks efforts by scanning the QR code above and or becoming a member or sending us a super sticker or super chat. Let's get into your questions. Anurag, thank you so much for becoming a member of the YouTube channel. JBJP, thank you so much for your contribution. How far is Russia's front line from Kiev in kilometers?
Good question. It's I think about 400, 500 kilometers, somewhere around that. So it's a long way. It's not near anyway.
JBJP bhai, thank you so much for your second contribution. But if I take that question, I'll get banned on YouTube. Sorry, brother. There are a bit of limitations on what you can and cannot speak about on this channel. Uh, Harsh, thank you so much for your contribution as well. Let's see. Okay. Patriot.
Hmm.
Asks General, Germany has 70% of its global investment in China. What's going to happen to those investment? Why Germans don't have faith in Indians? That's a
No,
connected question, actually. Let's keep the second part out, sir. China connection is going to be interesting because that might just help them switch sides.
no. You see, Europe, why are you looking at Germany? It's 70% of, I mean, the entire Europe is dependent on China. And as far as Germany is concerned, Germany has been an industrial hub of the world. I mean, it's got the best of technology and best of scientists and everybody. And China is where cheap labor is, where cheap industry is, and cheap warehousing is. So when you have all that, it has its investments in China. Nothing's going to happen to those investments. China wants this to continue. And the very reason why China is into this war is it wants peace. If we go back much, to one of those episodes wherein we've spoken about China wanting to broker peace, that is primarily the reason that it wants to keep its lines of communications, road lines, rail lines open through Russia, through Ukraine, into, you know, I mean, from China to Europe. So nothing's going to happen. Today there's no direct line if the railway lines are not functional and the
Hmm.
road this thing is hampered because of the war. Uh, Once there is peace, all that will happen. Today, it's of course the cost of it is being borne by Europe when the manufactured goods from China have to come back to Europe through the sea route. So that's how the cost of goods is increasing. As far as India is concerned, well, India and China, uh, India doesn't produce cheap stuff like China does. Let me just put it this way. And we have our own population. We're the largest populated country in the world. Today, we are going in for self-reliance, Atmanirbharta, as we call it, and our exports are quality exports and niche exports. So there is India definitely has some way to go when it catches up with China as far as all this is concerned. But the day is not too far. And as far as the Indo-German trade is concerned, I think it's quite considerable. I won't know the figures as of now.
FTA is also coming up. So Gaurav says there's news about USA refusing to send the F-16s for Ukraine, and also please put some light on the EU grain deal. I think you've spoken about the second part, but
Yeah,
any
the
light on the
F-16s,
F-16?
F-16s, the refusal, United States has refused to send F-16s. Let's get it right. F-16, United States has, what happens is when you sell, say you sold F-16s to particular country, in this case, say Romania, or you say Netherlands and Denmark. So in that agreement, it is very clearly mentioned that these aircraft are meant to be used by your country for your self-defense, and they cannot be transferred to any other nation. This is a part of the deal,
Hmm.
right? The United States has never agreed to send their F-16s. It has agreed to allow European nations, has recently permitted European nations to provide their F-16s to Ukraine.
Ukraine,
That's how Denmark and Netherlands, they
Netherlands.
came. So just be clear on that. As far as the the F-16s, they're in Pakistan also. The same story. There's a strict, very very strict control over all the aircraft which are F-16 aircraft which are there all across the world. They maintain a very very strict control over these. That's one. So USA is not sending F-16s. USA is now allowed countries to give their F-16s, and that too also will be scaled down. There'll be technicians who will take out some sensitive equipment of that, and some of these aircraft, the advanced ones, are nuclear capable, so that makes things worse. As far as EU grain deal is concerned, yes, two things have happened. We talked about the grain deal. Two, three things. Turkey and Russia, I think, met today and meeting tomorrow also. They're having a meeting, the foreign ministers, wherein they're going to decide that how they're going to move the grain from Russia, and that grain is to be provided to the needy countries. Now, how this arrangement is going to work is the raw, unprocessed grain is going to go from Russia to Turkey. Turkey is going to refine it and then send it further. So this kind of
Hmm.
arrangement is going to be worked out as far as Russia Turkey is concerned. So that's happening. Would have happened today and 31st and 1st. So that's one. They're meeting in Turkey. Second, as far as the Ukraine grain deal is concerned, as the Ukrainian grain is going via Romania, it is being exported. So it's going to take the land route for some time, and then thereafter, it's going to various countries. It is not being permitted. The five countries have banned the grains coming into there. That is, if you want to know the names, Poland, Hungary, Italy. No, correction. I'll just tell you. There are five countries which have said no to the Ukrainian grains, right? So that is going to happen. Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, and Bulgaria. These are the five countries which have said that they are not going to permit Ukrainian grain into that. However, for export, they're going in through Romania. They're going to go the land route, and then they're going to be moved around. That is the corridor. And then it talks of Ukraine has promised some corridor through the Black Sea. Uh, we did see some, ships coming in. Then those were, as you know, they were boarded upon by Russians to check whether they were actually taking the grains in, or they were taking weapons, bringing in weapons, etc. So that kind of a thing is taking place. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting life, I must say. Mindwaves, thank you so much for your contribution. He says, how far is China involved in this war? Are they really supplying weapons to Russia? And what is the role of India in this war?
China is involved in a way that I would say it's more on a moral front. As far as war supplies to Russia are concerned, I'm sure some components which were normally being outsourced from Russia, by Russia from China, are being procured as they were being procured earlier. Russia really does not need to go to China to, get any arms and equipment or ammunition. But definitely, as I just stated, few components which are used by the Russian military industrial complex, which were normally outsourced from China, would still continue to be provided by China. So that's where it would rest. As far as India is concerned, we are totally neutral. Uh, we are really not getting into supplying any wherewithal and siding with any country. We are looking at arriving at peace because people are dying. So we are with peace, and that's where it rests.
Well said, sir. Okay. JP, he says, to cover 500 kilometers to 4K, how much time will it take?
Good
Oh, man.
question. No, trust you me, it's not simple, and he's not going to come. Well, he's not going to come from the direction that you think that he's going to take. If Russia has to go, he's not going to come from Kharkiv and then go on to Kyiv. He's going to come through Belarus, my friend. That's where he came in from earlier. So don't be under the impression that he's going to cover 500, 400 kilometers and, tug along and then take it on. Sorry, he's not going to do that. It's stupid. Max, he'll go out to his Kharkiv. Rest all if he'll come through Belarus. He may do it today. He may do it after 3 years, 2 years.
John says, many surprises. I'll give it a month before I believe anything. I always felt Europe would go back to Russia with its tail between its legs.
Yeah, just give it a month, as you said. Let the winter set in. Obviously, they'll need their tail to warm up. You know what?
As sad as losing 40,000 troops is, it's kind of hilarious that how news is spun around new games, old tactics.
Yeah, media. Unfortunately, it's. I feel sad at times listening to BBC or watching them uh, biased reporting. You look at the United States media. Uh, that's what today I thought I'll paint the picture as to how well the counteroffensive is progressing is what I wanted to put across. And yeah, that's how it is. Media.
Raghunandan says, "Sir, why isn't the Russian Air Force being used to conduct deep strike missions, taking out supply routes of Ukraine forces to make the defense line collapse?" Your view on it?
Yeah, they just took on one railway a train full of ammunition.
Yeah.
Well, you're not the only one who's wondering, Raghu. I too keep wondering as to why they're not doing it. Now, I will put it this way: the intent is not to lose your equipment. The intent is to safeguard, preserve for a bigger battle if it emerges. As far as Ukraine is concerned, Ukraine is going to collapse on its own. They do not have the boots that are required. They can You can give them any amount of wherewithal. Their troops are not well trained. The RT, the drones, all that today, and even the aircraft standoff attacks. You got something called BVR, beyond visual range. When you're in an aircraft, from you use the BVR technology to fire and take on targets. That's how you do it. And the Russians can do it while flying in their own territory. They can take on Ukrainian targets. So why I'm saying all this is that, as you know, the air defense, quite a bit of Patriot, missile systems, air defense systems, the T-Iris of the German, etc., have been provided uh, to Ukraine. So the best of air defense equipment has been provided to Ukraine, and Russia would not want to lose its aircraft. And in any case, Ukrainians are going nowhere. So why waste ammunition? Why waste aircraft? Why waste so much of energy? Yeah.
Pushkar says, Jain Renaissance through drone attacks here and there inside Russia by Ukraine or NATO. Is it because Ukraine has very less manpower and equipment left in its army?
Not really. Not really. This drone warfare. I was reading somewhere that the Ukrainians have stepped up their drone production manifold,
Yeah.
and this is a very cheap method of taking on targets accurately and in deep inside the enemy territory. So the drone warfare, the drones today are a game changer. You know, I remember using a drone once for the first time, and it was as an innovation when I was commanding a division. One artillery officer, he let out a drone, and through the drone we could take on the target, and all that. He demonstrated that to me. Now this is I'm talking about 5 6 years back, and that was being taken as something very novel. But today it has become routine. As you are aware, drones are delivering Amazon packages, or even delivering pizzas. So it's a cheap piece of equipment, readily commercially available, which can be fitted with, which can be weaponized, and which can fly in deep and hit targets very accurately. So that's what it is.
Uh, Batraji is saying winter is coming in. EU cannot sustain its hardship for that too long. Why the? That's why the reality is kicking in. General Behel, sir, your thoughts?
Absolutely, I agree with you, Batraji. See a lot of hardship being faced by the, if the winter is harsh, which is, and it's not mild like last time, then certainly Europe is in deep trouble, and there'll be a huge energy crisis. And as far as Zelensky is concerned, he's already made. I think he held a meeting today, wherein he's told us all his people to ensure that the infrastructure and the energy related infrastructure, all the critical infrastructure, including the energy related infrastructure, is safeguarded. So there is a thought already being given in Ukraine, and I'm sure in the rest of the Europe
So,
also.
so there are two questions on the same line, sir. Let me just read out both of them. Ramesh ji says, heard some feeble rumors that USA is cozying up to Pakistan army and arranging supplies of Pakistani arms stockpiled to Ukraine. Any views on it? They've been doing this since October last year. JBJP says, what and how much wartime military supplies of weapons and other equipment has Pakistan done to Ukraine since Feb 2022? What in return does Pakistan seek from USA to be in good books?
You see, it's uh, we saw that figure uh, somewhere as to what are the kind of exports. These there certainly there has been a boost which has been given to the uh, exports from Pakistan, and we all know that the Pakistan ordnance factories, uh, they are known for exporting small arms and artillery ammunition to the world. So that industry is well established. So as and moreover, it is cash strapped. So it's not it's not a very surprising thing that Pakistan is not posing up. I wouldn't say to the United States, but to Ukraine itself, because they have a direct dealing with Ukraine. Uh, we are aware of the tank deals and all that has happened. 320, T-80 UD tanks which are provided by Ukraine, and you had the Ukrainians on Pakistani soil for a very long time. They've
Helicopter
been,
engines.
yeah, all that. So there is a lot of cooperation between the two countries, and we had this meeting where their foreign minister, the defense minister, foreign minister, I think, or the defense minister was there in Pakistan, and they had some
Yes.
closed door meets and
Kuleda.
stuff. Yeah. So all that is taking place and will take place. It's natural. And if I'm short of ammunition, I will go to the countries which are manufacturing ammunition for export purposes, and Pakistan is doing it. So nothing very strange about it. And anybody in their you know in financial wisdom would do it. And Pakistan, in any case, wants to be in good books of the United States, but knows very well that it is difficult to do so. After all, our friend was there in Russia on the day on 24th of February 2022 when the Russians walked into Ukraine. So Imran Khan was very much there, the prime minister. So whose side? They, they need to take sides. So it's a difficult choice for them as well.
So,
On one hand, they must please the Ukrainians and the West. On the other hand, it must ensure that it does not antagonize Russia because it needs cheap Russian oil. And also, of late, we are aware that last couple of years, 4 5 years, they've been posing up to Russia for supply of weapons and equipment.
hmm. Harshal, thank you so much for this super chat. And he asks, okay, hello, Major General, sir, how do you think NATO will respond if Russia uses nukes in Ukraine? Will NATO respond back militarily? And do they have the capacity to do so? How will Russia respond back?
Nuclear war is a different ball game. Russia nukes Ukraine, Russia gets nuked back. Plain and simple. While Firstly, this scenario is a very, very remote chance of such a thing happening. Russia, United States, and all these nuclear countries, all those who possess nuclear weapons, uh, they are more of
Yeah.
deterrent value. They are not meant for use, and if they are to be used, they are to be used in an extreme decisive condition. As far as whether it is a tactical nuclear weapon or whether it's a you know normal nuclear weapon, a megaton, uh, the effect or the counter effect would be the same. So it's very few irresponsible countries like Pakistan. They also incidentally uh, claim to be responsible. No one should not get into the hands of the terrorists. And to safeguard them, I think they have adequate measures in place.
So, Mind Waves has a very interesting question. Why doesn't India do a grain deal with Russia? If what did it build oil, like buy from Russia and sell it to Europe?
Good one. And I like your name, Mind Waves, and that's how your mind is working. But that's not going to happen because we ourselves import grain. We also do a lot of. We used to import a lot of food stuff from Ukraine, and
Last year
we
we
wouldn't
didn't.
want
This
to.
year we did add to again.
Yeah. So, yeah, Banyagiri is in our blood, but not to this extent.
I can't pronounce your name here, but can you ask the general what is Russia's biggest failure in the war? Lack of air support, poor counter battery support. Thank you.
None of the two. Russia's biggest failure, I wouldn't say. The only failure I would say Russia's had is the initial stages, wherein it lacked intelligence or it did not uh, comprehend the ground reality as far as Ukraine is concerned.
Went
And
in
they
too
thought it
light.
was going to be a walk. So I think it was more of an intelligence failure. I think it was more of misinformation by the intelligence community to their political leadership. As far as technical uh, aspects are concerned, I think whether it is counter battery or whether it is air, they have the wherewithal. They are employing it, and they may not be employing it to the extent that they should, because the need is not felt. I'm sure if the need is felt, they would be employed adequately. So, in these two terms, I won't say that it's been a failure. The failure was there in the initial stages. Uh, do they want to capture more area at a faster pace? That's the call that they have to take. Unfortunately, that call is not being taken for the reasons I have been talking about today. For the future, for an eventuality which may be a bigger escalation.
Issue. Hmm. And the last one we will take from Witness. He says, uh, "Sir, with Europeans looking like capitulating to the Russians to secure their energy supplies, would it be astute for the Russians to throw in the gauntlet to NATO and go after Poland and Lithuania?"
No, it's not going to do that. You see, uh, again, why would Russia want to expand beyond? I mean, as of today, the special military operation is by and large restricted to the Donbas region, to those four oblasts which they always claimed, and to Crimea, of course. Uh, they're looking at control over the Black Sea. Now, if you'll ask me as to why have they launched the counteroffensive towards, Kupiansk and Kharkiv, obviously you got to pose a threat to you know draw the forces from the south and the east towards the north. So that's what they're doing. So they've drawn out major forces, and it's in military terms it's called a threatened being. I'm not progressing the operations to the extent that I would like to. If I want to, I will. So it's a threatened being, right? And
Very important.
so what they've done is they've taken away the attention, a large amount of forces. You you behave yourself, otherwise I'm headed that side at the right opportune moment. So how far will they go? How fast will they go? Uh, I think they will wait for the right moment to do so.
That looks like next year, sir. And your prediction of this war continuing to 2 years does kind of.
Yeah, it will. I mean, the next year is going to be elections, and next year is going to be
But as
Zelensky's
it is,
ouster. Zelensky has to go. Biden has to go. The new,
full setup
dispensation
needs
will
to
be,
come. Yeah.
yeah,
As it
and
is, you're going
NATO,
into rains now.
the winter. Yeah, so rains, winters, then thereafter the thaw. So when the thaw takes place, obviously the tanks can't
Can't move.
move. So, and the window which is there for an operation is about those 3-4 months that we've just seen. So in the summer, so these 3-4 months again that will happen, and NATO will the they will want to build up the supplies, ammunition, recoup. These guys will want to carry out mobilization, train, all that will happen. So you'll have a battle for 3 more months next year, and then thereafter again a new something will happen. But as far as going in for Lithuania, Poland, etc., I don't buy it because Russians do not intend to do so, and that's my reading. I mean, I don't know what goes in their mind.
I think you've
Yeah,
busted a bit many narratives today. So it's been an interesting episode to kind of find out the deep dives behind the Ukraine war. We've till now kind of about the Ukraine war. Today, I think for the first time we've gone behind the scenes, opened the doors, and kind of peeked into the conversations to find out what's happening around in that area. And I must say, Ukropolia, uh, I am not able to.
when you read and you read and you read, you come across some interesting ones. So that Putin understanders are also increasing, and they understand Putin's compulsions. Then
Acha.
you have a new nation coming about. So Ukropolia.
On that note, sir, thank you so much as usual. See you next Thursday. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Adi. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you, sir.